Hello, my name is Richard Bay and I'm the director of the Echo Lab at the Minneapolis Heart Institute. My talk is Key Imaging Aspects. Here's my disclosure slide. Tricuspid valve imaging is much more difficult than the mitral valve. The tricuspid valve leaflets are thin, there can be shadowing from the atrial septum, mitral annuloplasty rings, or mitral or aortic valve prostheses. The leaflets are not perpendicular to the insination beam, and the valve is located in the far field from the esophageal position. Let's start with screening imaging. The mid-esophageal four-chamber view gives us an assessment of RV size and function and shows us either the septal and anterior leaflets or septal and posterior leaflets. This will occasionally be used as a grasping view. If the probe is a little higher in the esophagus or slightly anteriorly flexed, this will show the anterior and septal leaflets. If the probe is advanced a little further into the esophagus or extended, this will show us the septal and posterior leaflets. Often a hint of the coronary sinus ostium is visualized. If the leaflets are not well visualized from the mid-esophageal position, sometimes advancing the probe into the deep esophageal window will yield better visualization of the leaflets. The atrial septum will be taken out of play in this view. The short axis view or commissural view is a key view. This will show us the location of the regurgitation in the anterior-posterior direction, with the anterior direction being closer to the aortic valve on the right and the posterior being towards the left. When a cursor is placed anteriorly on the valve in an X-plane view, the orthogonal view will show the septal and anterior leaflet grasping view on the right. The cursor can then be marched posteriorly to show the leaflets at different points along the commissure. Here we see the cursor placed in a more posterior region, and the X-plane view shows the septal and posterior leaflet grasping view at that location. The long axis or grasping view is typically between 140 to 180 degrees, and this is the view usually used for grasping. Again, if the leaflets are not well visualized from the mid-esophageal windows, deep esophageal windows should be attempted and can often yield better images. 3D imaging of the tricuspid valve can be of variable quality, but can be helpful for clip arm orientation and gross assessment. Here the 3D images show a myxomatous tricuspid valve with myxomatous leaflets. One of the key critical views is the shallow transgastric short axis view. This gives us the best visualization of the leaflet tips and gap widths at different locations in the tricuspid valve. This example shows us a valve that is essentially bicuspid. This example shows a quadricuspid valve, best seen in the transgastric short axis view in the lower right. Hepatic veins can be interrogated by TEE to show systolic flow reversals. And I recommend some supine imaging be performed during screening exams to ensure that imaging does not deteriorate significantly with a change to supine positioning, which will be the position of the patient in the procedure. On to procedural imaging. A wire is advanced from the IVC to SVC just like with MitraClip. The dilator and guide are positioned in the right atrium. Here we see a view from above with the guide just into the RA from the IVC. The clip is advanced into the right atrium and brought down towards the valve. Watch out for a prominent Eustachian valve, which may inhibit posterior positioning of a clip. The clip is brought down towards the valve on X-plane imaging, and trajectory can be assessed. Here you can see the clip is lateral to the septal anterior commissure, and corrective measures can be performed to get it in the right position. Often a septal hugger trajectory will be present, causing similar problems to an aorta hugger and MitraClip. Fortunately, the latest triluminate delivery system can easily correct for this. Clip arm alignment in the RA is performed with 3D imaging, and the clip is advanced into the RV under X-plane imaging. The clip is opened and clip arm orientation and positioning is confirmed in transgastric short axis imaging. Just as with MitraClip, the XTR and NTR triclips require at least 9 mm of leaflet length for the XTR and 6 mm of leaflet length for the NTR. Keep in mind that tricuspid valve leaflets are thin and can tear with high tension. XTR is not a solution to try to bridge wide gaps. Adequate leaflet insertion is critical to prevent leaflet tears or SLDAs. Consider additional clip placement for stabilization if there is any doubt. Grasping is ideally performed in the grasping view with good visualization of the leaflet tips and clip arms, just like MitraClip. Here's a XTR clip grasp. Leaflet insertion is then assessed in multiple views: 4-chamber, long axis, commissural, and transgastric short axis views. Sometimes insertion can be difficult to assess from esophageal windows. Occasionally this can be assessed from a mid-transgastric position between the shallow transgastric short axis view and a deep transgastric view, where we can see the leaflets inserting into an upside-down view of the clip. Here's another example of this upside-down transgastric view. If the transgastric short axis views are good, 3D multiplanar reconstruction can also be performed and manipulated to demonstrate leaflet insertion. Here's another example of 3D MPR from transgastric views to demonstrate leaflet insertion. While the transgastric views are often helpful, occasionally you may need to resort to alternative imaging such as transthoracic imaging to demonstrate leaflet insertion. Subsequent clips. If multiple clips are planned, it is advantageous to place clips from an anterior to posterior sequence. Here we can see anterior residual regurgitation after the first clip. A second clip is placed anterior to the first clip, but the first clip causes acoustic shadowing in the transgastric view anteriorly, which obscures visualization of the second clip. Once the clips are placed, 3D imaging can show the location of the clips, and color flow assessment is obtained in multiple views. Anterior to posterior leaflet clipping is much more uncommon, but can be done with a grasping view typically in the 60 to 90 degree angle range. Don't forget to interrogate the hepatic veins afterwards and get a tricuspid valve gradient. Transthoracic echocardiography will be obtained the following day to confirm clip stability and reduction of TR. In conclusion, imaging the tricuspid valve can be technically difficult. There are important imaging views needed that are not routinely obtained. Transgastric short axis view is critical. Imagers and implanters both need to understand the anatomy and views and speak a common language. Communication is key to this procedure. Adjunctive imaging can often be helpful to assess leaflet insertion, such as transthoracic echocardiography or even intracardiac echocardiography. Thank you for your attention.